attendance at the early games of the ACC tournament has always been a struggle. Last year in DC, the year before that in Greensboro, it's never good. And I have to ask you guys, why not make the ACC tournament? If you're going to leave three teams out, why not leave three more teams at home and make it a common sense, easy to manage, and easy to digest 12-team event? It would push more emphasis on the regular season by leaving that bottom third at home. And if you're trying to make up the content to our friends at ESPN, play two more regular season games, one home and one away. Everybody makes more money, and it's a better event at the end of the season. Again, putting more emphasis on the regular season. Kerry, David, what do you think? DG, we'll start with you.
Well, Mike, I want to remind our viewers and listeners first that you and I will be on Press Row in Charlotte, bringing daily video and audio content from right there courtside, the way we did last year with great reviews from up in DC when you and I were at different locations. Also, real quick, NC by Train, thanks to them for being a new partner. I can see my friend Mike Waddell in the Charlotte area from the Triangle area where Coach Keating and I are often based. For $29 in each direction. Like that number was great. I dodged parking problems. I dodged traffic headaches. $29 each way. I don't know that's always the price, but I just wanted to share that we've walked down that path, and it's a worthy one to consider. The answer to your question, Mike, I think part of this, the fun of this three-man panel, is that I've given Coach Keating's deep background both as an athlete but also a head coach, given your deep background as an athletic director in other contexts. I believe the answer to your question about the size of the ACC tournament requires multiple perspectives. And Coach can elaborate on his coach's perspective, but I can promise you the coaches that I know don't want the stigma of not being invited to the ACC tournament, right?
That's right.
The tournament's 70 plus years old, and the only example of somebody not being invited to the ACC tournament prior to this year, where for those who forget, the new rules just chop the bottom three teams in the standings out. Prior to this year, everybody was always invited, unless you're on probation or there was some really odd set of circumstances. So this is new, and if you do what Mike Waddell just suggested and you make it an even smaller tournament, I do think you'd avoid that low attendance headache on the Tuesday. I do think you'd make for more compelling television. Few people would miss the games that you chopped, and I've been at a lot of those early week tournament events, man, and it's crickets sometimes in those arenas. But some coaches wouldn't like it for the stigma aspect. Some athletic directors might not like it because for decades, one of the carrots, if you will, for being a major contributor was that you were near the front of the line to buy ACC tournament tickets. Now, that could still be the case, and maybe your argument would be big boosters really only care about those final 3 days. Even if they're buying the full week's worth of tickets, they're probably only going to 1 or 2 or 3 days. So maybe there's pushback on all of these. But we all know the philosophy usually loses out to the money. So what's philosophically one of the reasons we always invite all teams to conference tournaments for decades? Because philosophically, we love one aspect of college basketball being that all 364 teams, no matter under the old way, no matter how bad your regular season was, there was something just philosophically beautiful about the idea that once we get to March, even if you were dead last in your league, even if theoretically you didn't win a game all year, theoretically, all 364 under the old way had a path to the NCAA tournament because everybody gives their bid to the official tournament champion. So you could be 0-30 or whatever and theoretically make that run. So there's that Cinderella aspect that has been central to college basketball for my lifetime and longer. And that philosophy is extinguished once you start having smaller conference tournaments. But again, philosophy, beautiful ideas in modern college athletics keep losing out to money and the bottom line. And if the TV partners want more of other types of games that Mike just mentioned, regular season or otherwise, and they want fewer of just these dog day afternoon type matchups. Well, the philosophical observations are going to lose again to the money observations, but we know that those coaches conversations will happen. Those AD conversations will happen. Those booster conversations will happen. Those TV partner conversations will happen. And money will be a part of all of those conversations in a way that will lead us to whatever is next when it comes to not only the ACC tournament, but all these other conference tournaments across the land.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I spent some time, fortunately, in some power conferences at some great conference tournament environments. The pageantry involved, the postseason feel from the coaching perspective. Certainly grew up in the Big East in the Garden and everything that comes with that. Had a chance to come to the ACC, was in the SEC twice, was in the Pac-10. And the reason why I use the Pac-10 last is we've only had a Pac-10 tournament for the last 2 decades plus. They didn't have a tournament. They were letting their regular season champion determine who got the auto bid. We may, unfortunately, from the fan perspective, see a shift, as David mentioned, to that going back to some different way of determining your champion. Now, what it takes out is what's been evolving and has evolved into that Cinderella. Even in the conference tournaments, like let's take out the first weekend, which maybe the greatest weekend in all of sports, right? Just for the aspect of the upset or the buzzer beater or the unexpected. But when you look back, and I'm just taking a look as David was talking about the last 20 years of the Pac-10 tournament, outside of Oregon State in 2020, there's been no real upset winner. They've still delivered their better teams. Oregon and Arizona have been the only champions in the last 10 years outside of the COVID year and outside of Oregon State in 2021. But even before that, you had a Colorado team that was one of a nationally ranked team in 2011. And when the Washington teams that Lorenzo Romar had, one of them was a 1 seed in the tournament. Not traditional names, but point being is not the 7 through 10 team. And even when they expanded out, winning. I don't really know what that answer is right now, although it may be dictated for ourselves. And the only reason that teams are really have outside of David's mention of the money involved and the gathering of the region, if you will, in an area to kind of celebrate the conference and let the teams get ready for postseason is money. And this may be falling by the wayside towards network determining what the value of another game may be as opposed to a grouping of games. We're talking about 3 games on the first day of the ACC tournament this year that, quite frankly, I'm not sure if we were privy to know what the analytically metrics are for the finance involved. Are they actually making money on those 3 games to have the building open, to staff it, to travel the teams, to put them in the hotel again? Like all of the things that come with running an extra day on what's already a long tournament. I'm not sure that value, as Michael mentioned pre-show, may not be better suited for 12 teams. Well, maybe it's better suited for, like, I remember going to the Big East tournament. I cut school every day before I got to college for a Big East quarterfinal day. And when you had 2 games in the morning and a break to go eat lunch and come back for 2 games at night, I'm telling you, I remember those ACC guys saying, oh, the ACC, my guys, don't even tell me about it. You have no idea what it's like on a Thursday or Friday in New York in the midst of winter transitioning to spring with these 8 teams just absolutely hammering each other to get to semifinal day. I thought it was a great day. I thought it was one of the better days in basketball as a kid growing up. I don't know if you move to even 8 and just have a 3-day tournament, right? Just take the top 8. Now this bodes the question. And we talked also about some of the older guards saying, well, let's combine some of these leagues. You heard Coach K and Coach Pitino talk about that. Well, I think that's trying to get ahead of what's going to happen anyway, which is the networks and the real financial driver of the eyeballs and the streaming, not just the people in the stands, but the millions of people that can watch. We may have this dictated by the network saying this is how we want to determine this. And maybe it's just a different way of getting the end of the season together. And you're already going to award and put more emphasis again back to where it was 25 years ago on the regular season. When you have this many teams involved, it's really, really hard to have a more than 3-round tournament of significance. It's really, really hard, although NC State kind of bucked that trend last year and becoming a 10 seed to win. You've had the teams that'll win 4 or 5 games. I think There was a team that won 5 games and actually made a run in the NCAA tournament before NC State. It's hard. It's hard on the coaches. It's hard on the kids. It's hard on the fans too, right? Like you think about the NC State fans last year that went to the first round, think, okay, we'll watch a game, watch it too, and then they realize after the tournament's over, their pocketbook got hit ×3. It's like, oh, now we got to go back and recoup that, right? So there's a lot of extenuating factors that are involved in this. I don't know what the best way really is, but as long as we still have 68 teams, as long as through all this change, the end result is still March Madness in 3 weekends, whether we go to 68 and change how those last 8 are adjudicated or not, when we have this traditional 64-team tournament, it's really, really hard as long as that contract is held to change how we get to this point, given the fact this is what we've set up and we have this Cinderella-type run for 2 weeks in March leading into March and then the first week of March Madness. As a coach, I think it kind of goes school to school. And David talked about this, and we opened up in how rosters are built right now. You know, and I'll tell you right now, there are some teams and some guys, and we've seen some ADs, Mike, take this track too, fire coaches 2 weeks before the season's ended because now they're being dictated by the transfer portal opening up in the second weekend of March. And you're going to have some ADs that think like, well, wait, we're getting penalized for making the NCAA tournament because we can't adjudicate the portal. My answer to that right now is this is a professionalization on all aspects. The guys that need to be taking care of the portal for you are not with the team. They're not coaching the team. This is probably what's going to push the higher level teams to have specific staffs or a person or people in place only evaluating the portal so that they can take care of that and it's more proactive than reactive. There are so many different moving parts to this. This is going to be a decade-long run to get this thing figured out as college basketball, as we know, it changes.
This is the moment we waited for. Everything you want is right here. We gon' give them what they came for. We gon' take it up from last year. Shoot 'em my shot, boy, I'm long range.